What's up, guys? Callous here. CI7 play-ins, live narration, best narration. It is the Aqua bracket, round of 8. Kollin7 and Baddummy. I'm going to be, as a neutral, unbiased host, pulling for Baddummy here. I want my prediction to be right. It's as simple as that. We're not doing so good at the moment. We are 1 for 3 with the predictions, including having one of the players that I said would win the bracket outright eliminated from the tournament, so we're not doing so good. But you got to see it from my seat. You really do. You got to think of it. Baddummy is on my Mushi League team, right? And other than donating to my tournaments, playing my trivia bot, offering to help me narrate if he gets eliminated from play-ins, and just generally being really respectful and chill and never giving me any problems, what has Kollin7 ever done for me? Okay? So you see where I'm coming from. Collin's on the bottom, and Rick Baddummy is on the top. I do, if I'm being serious for a moment, I do think Rick has the advantage here. Obviously, anyone who's in play-ins is in play-ins for a reason. Anybody can beat anybody. But regardless of how good somebody was, 6 months ago, a year ago, or how good someone has the potential to be a year from now, any of that, if I have to give you an unbiased take as to who I think right now today is the better Pokemon player, I think it's Rick. He's looking good lately. There's no way to dispute it. Some of you guys thought that he should have been in Maine, and I don't hate that argument with how on point he's been. He's coming off just now a 3 to 4 week stretch where, even though he's in like 5 tournaments right now, did not lose a single set throughout that whole time. He also was atop the ADV ladder not long ago. Rick has been around a long time, including some unsuccessful play-ins runs in the past, but it feels different this time. I've never seen him play as well as he does. His game is not perfect. I still see, especially in the mid game, some of the lines I kind of question. Sometimes he sacks mons that he doesn't need to sack. There's always room for improvement. But Rick looks as strong as he ever has, and like I said, he's going to be my pick. But Kollin is somebody that has a lot of hype behind him. A lot of people who play more ADV tournaments than I do these days, low bar, have been watching Kollin. He got drafted for ADV PL. He's involved in Mushi League. A lot of people think that Kollin's the real deal and is going to really give Rick a run for his money. I genuinely like both guys, and on a personal level, it's a bummer because like one of these guys has to lose. But I'd be equally happy for whichever one wins. So cool pairing competitively, kind of a bummer. Personal level, I'd rather these guys be in opposite brackets or not fight to the finals or whatever. But this is the way the cookie crumbles. And it's looking like two. I was going to use the word stall, but not like Claydol, Dusclops, Skarmory, do nothing level of stall, but two defensive teams, two TSS defensive leaning balances. Maybe Collins has a little more oomph here, and this is obviously a good turn for Kollin, getting the substitute down and blocking Leech Seed. He's just going to be able to CM up here, and obviously Celebi can't phase it out. It could theoretically have Perish Song, which is probably the best case here. Wow. Collin's not going to like that. Goes through the trouble. He subs to block the seed. Thinks he's got Rick where he wants him. Gets a CM going. This Rachi's going to ravage through his team. Only to be immediately hit with Perish Song, which is such a good counter to CM Mons. And even if it is against something like a CM Celebi, you can't baton pass to get away. You take the Perish Song with you. So, yeah, Perish Song B is one of the very best defensive tools. I would argue in a lot of cases it's actually better than Blissey is against CM chains. Kollin can and maybe should attack here again. He does have to be aware that a Dugtrio could come in and trap him, but you might as well fish for a crit or a burn before you switch out. And Kollin agrees, and he gets the luck that he wants. That's a 20% burn landing on the doll. Maybe it has refresh, maybe it doesn't. Old school Milotic Claydol double refresh stuff is something I haven't seen in years. I'm talking back when like Ray Scarface used to play these CALLOUS Invitational tournaments. He used to play teams like that. But that is an old concept and not one that I'm overly fond of. But that actually probably would be the best case for Baddummy here if he just clicks refresh right now. And there you go. That's the second time that I've said he probably doesn't have that, but it's the best case, and Rick has had it. Both the Perish song and the Refresh, exactly what he needs in this moment. All that being said, this team, super not my style for Rick. It's very, very his style. Not surprised at all to see him roll up with something like this, but definitely to do nothing for my personal taste. Too few ways to win. Rick is probably not the greatest player to live narrate because inevitably his games are going to be a bit of a grind, but hey, grab a drink, grab your popcorn. We're probably going to be here for a minute. Let's have some fun with live narration. For Kollin, it's not as clear, but I mean, some realistic things he could have in the back that would make sense would be something like Skarmory, Starmie, Blissey, Aerodactyl, things to that effect. Blissey and Rachi aren't usually together, but they can be, so maybe that one is a little bit less likely. But like I said, Skarm, Starmie, Aero, that kind of stuff in the back. Dugtrio possibly. There's a Leech Seed connecting through Para on T-Tower, which we saw Earthquake Toxic earlier, which probably the rest of the set is Rock Slide and Taunt, which is a set and a lead that I personally am fond of and think is pretty underutilized in the metagame today. I think it's got a lot of play. But we're not going to get to see that at this moment. And the last poke for Rick, unsurprisingly, is Skarm. His team, as it is, with the Skarm, I think is to do nothing. But man, if it didn't have spikes, it would be way, way, way too do nothing. So he's going to at least have to push the game forward in this way. We'll see if he's willing to eat a Fire Punch in exchange for a spike here. And the answer is yes, but Kollin instead is going to opt for CM. I'm not sure if that's better or worse than 2 Fire Punches. I think it's worse because I think it's more important to burn the Skarm than it is to get damage on it, especially if you think that the Rachi can pass a Wish to it. I think I care more about the burn than doing a little bit extra, but Kollin sees it differently. Had it been me in that spot, I think I just would have Fire Punched it twice rather than CM plus Fire Punch, but we'll see. Taunt there is predicted by Rick. That was designed to stop more spikes from coming down, but instead, you're going to get Milo, and it doesn't have the option to Toxic here, so Surf it is. Zapdos takes it no problem, 24%, and that should scare off the Milotic, but Zapdos is not the scariest poke ever for Rick. He's got the Celebi and the Doll. The Jirachi can potentially tank stuff, depending on the set. We've seen nothing, but he's paralyzed from earlier here. Lefty's up to about 2/3. And the Zapdos has only shown T-Bolt, T-Wave, assuming that it does in fact have some kind of hidden power, which is not a guarantee, but it's very, very likely. We can rule out that it has the ability to sub-pass. And there is BP, so in theory the last move could be sub, but far more likely and far more common is that it's simply some kind of hidden power as the last move there. And it's probably HP Grass on this particular configuration. He's got Swampert. It almost certainly has Ice Beam. You probably don't need to load up on ice attacks. My guess would be it is just HP Grass as the final move on the Zapdos. So we end up Rachi on Rachi. Rix has gotten himself a little bit healthier through a couple of lefties turns. He shows Body Slam Rachi, so that should tell you what the whole set is. It is almost certainly just going to be Fire Punch, Body Slam, Wish Protect, known as Asterachi, or as far as Danilo is concerned, Danilo Rachi, but more commonly known as Asterachi, the man who popularized it. Unfortunately, he will not be participating in CALLOUS Invitational this year, but love Asta forever, and I hope he watches these games and takes some enjoyment away from them. Back to the matter at hand, Rachi did not want to stay in against its counterpart and fish for Body Slam powers. Opts for Claydol here. We've seen we've seen the full set, I lied. So we know that the full set here is not overly effective. There are no super effective moves against Doll. There's the Fire Punch and the Psychic, which are probably comparable. Psychic obviously resisted, but has the stab behind it. I think I like Fire Punch better if you're going to attack, because you could fish for the burn, but it's not even that good, because we know that the Doll has refreshed, so this Doll is actually pretty good at fending off Rachi here, and Kollin agrees, despite being +1 out of the way he goes. he immediately BP's back out with Zapdos, which I think is right, especially if it is last move HP Grass. He knows he can't do anything meaningful to the Celebi. Even T-Wave would just be natural cured away, so there really isn't anything. Fire Punch there, not exciting. And Baddummy, to be safe, goes Perish Song immediately in case he began to CM up or sub there, but he didn't do either one. This could be a grind, but I think Kollin, as it sits, does have a way to win this game. If the Celebi is going to be the consistent answer to the Rachi, all he has to do is run him out of Perish Songs, which is not that hard to do. It only has the 5 PP, which of course with PP ups gets boosted up to 8 PP. But it's really not that hard. I mean, it's a grind. It's going to take a minute. This is looking very likely to be a longer game. And that Toxic Mist could be relevant if it is a team with no heal bell. We know it's not Rest Zapdos, but there could be, or may not be. There probably is not, in fact, a heal bell in the back. So that Toxic Mist on Zap is relevant and is unlucky for Baddummy. But as I was saying, if he can stall him out of Perish Songs, of which there are only 8 to begin with, then I think that Rick is going to have a hard time stopping the Jirachi. So way too early to say. 6-6 game, 2 unrevealed for Kollin in the back. Only 33 turns in, now 34. But I feel reasonably confident that if he plays well and understands what his outs are, that Kollin should be able to win this game. I don't think that Rick can deal with this set of Jirachi long term. He definitely has the tools to fend it off on a temporary basis. He can go to T-Tar and hope it doesn't get burnt. He can go to the Claydol, which has Refresh. His own Rachi can maybe paralyze it, what have you. But I don't know that he can stop it in the long run. So I think I like Kollin's position a little bit better in this game. Rick has managed to get some chip on some of Kollin's pokes. And then he's got the Spike down, which so far Kollin hasn't shown that he can remove. But that certainly doesn't mean there's no spinner in the back. Doll plus Pert is not the most common thing, and I don't think they're the greatest pairing. They have a lot of residual weaknesses, not type weaknesses, obviously, because Swampert only has one. But they have a lot of the same problems. They're weak to a lot of the same mons. So usually it is Swampert with Starmie if you're going to have a spinner. Or it could be Claydol with another water, such as Milo, or with Suicune. I'm not saying you can't Swampert plus Doll. Obviously it can be done and has been done. But I don't think it's the most common thing. So I don't think there's going to be a Doll in the back. There could still be a Starmie for Kollin. We know there's no Ghost for Rick. So if Kollin does have a spinner and finds an opportunity to get it in, he should be able to get a spin off without too much of an issue. Now, a lot of the stuff for Rick would be somewhat of a threat to a hypothetical Starmie. But like if you can get it in on like my Lotic or something like that, it's basically a free spin, and there's really little to nothing that Rick could do to punish in that situation. But this is all hypothetical. Right now we've got this matchup yet again. Fire Punch comes down, and this time he's going to Leech Seed. I don't know if Kollin played that correctly. I think he needs to be subbing to make it so Rick has to Perish Song rather than having Leech Seed be an out. If you sub, it takes away Leech Seed being a solution to this problem, and it forces the Perish Song. But as it stands, when you don't sub, you're effectively saving his Perish Song PP, which is the opposite of what you want to be doing. You specifically want to drain the PP of that move if you can. So I think Kollin makes a minor error in that sequence, but not going to cost him the game or anything like that. This EQ, however, is not the correct prediction as Skarm sneaks in. And there is lair number 2. He has not shown whether or not he is toxic, but it's an interesting argument there if it's toxic Skarm, and it might not be. There's no Doug or whatever. It very well might just be Drill Peck. But if it is toxic Skarm there, he may have missed an opportunity in that moment to toxic the Zap. But this is obviously very relevant. The Celebi here is going to get eaten by Dugtrio. Now, granted, the Dugtrio is going to be eaten as well by the Spikes damage plus HP Grass, but it's going to leave Celebi low enough to where Sand can and does finish it off. And now the Celebi is no longer an answer to the Jirachi for Kollin. So he still has the one unrevealed. Like I said, I think Skarm, Starmie, and Aerodactyl are all things that it feasibly could be in this position. He's going to BP out of the Rachi now, and he's taking a moment here. This has been a fairly fast-paced game, despite it being not the world's fastest teams. And he doesn't take too long to make the decision. He decides that Swampert is fine, as it probably should be. It is a threat to the Rachi, of course, with Stab EQ. Burned Milo comes in, takes just 14% between the very high base special defense and, of course, the resistance. Milo here can refresh if it would like, and Swampert really can't do too much about it. And the way this is being played, it certainly looks to me like it is not a star me for Kollin in the back. I think that right there would have been a perfect opportunity. It's such an obvious refresh. You clearly should go to star me there if you have it, if you're Kollin, and then you just click rapid spin and there's nothing Milo can do to punish. So giving Kollin credit that he's better than that, I'm going to say that it is in fact not a star me in the back. And it makes me wonder, because if it were Skarm, he would have found an opportunity to get it in already. If it were star me, it should have come in right then, right there. So is it something like Aerodactyl or Salamence in the back? Is it that kind of Mon? Or is it something I'm not expecting whatsoever? Some kind of weird surprise Mon that is not what we would think it is. Time will tell, but I'm going to be disappointed in Kollin if it turns out that it's a star me, because I don't think this is played optimally if it is. So here comes the Swampert coming into the doll, just 20% from Psychic, but those two layers that Kollin thus far has not shown an ability to remove are still down. And he does have the taunt lead, so it's very possible he's just not packing a Rapid Spinner here. He's got a taunt lead, he's got Zapdos, he's got a Jirachi that has a move that super effectively hits Skarm. He's opting for Hydro Pump on Swampert. It's a lot of signs that might tell us that he's cheating on a spinner. But that is TBD, and I'm starting to feel not so good about my previous prediction of Kollin taking this game, or at least being in a better position in this game. It kind of looks like Rick has the advantage, but anybody's game for sure. This is far from over, and it really does depend on what that last poke is. I think Kollin should be milking the Jirachi more than he is, but Rick is totally fine with this sequence. Zapdos comes in, immediately BP's out, something takes spikes damage, rinse, repeat, and in the meantime, Rick just sits there and gains lefties. I think he's totally fine with that. Kollin does not seem to be making any meaningful progress here. I'm not clear what his game plan is, but he doesn't seem to know how to break out of this and move forward with the game. I don't think getting your Swampert killed slowly but surely is going to be it. One of these times he's going to have to catch the Claydol with what I assume is HP Grass from the Zapdos, but the Swampert here, this ain't it. This is just not going to be what gets him out of this game. The Milotic can wall it forever, and it's just not going to get the job done. It's going to take spikes every time. It can't break through. Swampert is not the answer. Kollin needs to be pressing the tempo with his Jirachi, and he needs to be trying to catch the Claydol with the Zapdos with Hidden Power Grass or Ice, but I think it's Grass. And or Kollin could bust out his last poke if he thinks it's something that can help him win. But with the stuff that has been shown, what should be happening is Kollin should be forcing the Rachi in more often and making Baddummy deal with it, which at this point is probably the Claydol. So I think the real key to winning the game for Kollin, because the Claydol is a pretty good answer to the Jirachi at this point, with it being low, with the spikes down, I think the real answer is the Zapdos needs to be catching Doll with Hidden Power. You got to do something to hit that Doll. Doll's actually kind of annoying for Kollin's team because this set of T-Tar can do very little to it. It happens to be the exact set of Claydol that counters it. If it didn't have Refresh, then Toxic would suffice as an answer. But as it stands, it's going to resist or be immune to both attacking moves, and it can shrug off the Toxic. So the T-Tar, even if it weren't paralyzed, is completely shut down by the Doll. And then it looks like a specially bulky Doll. You see how little that Hidden Power did. So the Zapdos is not that exciting against it either. And then this particular set of Jirachi is also largely walled by Claydol. So I'm not clear if it is a team-building mistake or what. But the Claydol seems more difficult for Kollin to break through than it should be. And Kollin is also up against the timer here. He dipped down to 15 seconds on the previous turn. He's going to do so again here. To be very clear on the rules, if he times out, that's gonna stand, and he's gonna lose game 1 if a timeout were to occur. So the last, unsurprisingly, given the way this was played, is not a Starmie, and it is a Salamence here. It's going to go for DD. Rick does have a bulky water, but it's not the one that is optimal against DD Mence. Not that Milotic is bad against DD Mence, but one crit, one flinch, what have you, and it can go badly. Also, it is a non-Ice Beam Milotic here, so it can't actually immediately respond to the DD Mence either. So this could actually be a difficult poke for Rick. His team is kind of cheating against DD Mence. I dislike the switch there from Kollin. It seemed so obvious that a roar was coming, but I guess he was really, really nervous about the possibility of a Toxic, or maybe he was playing around and Protect, but all the switch did there was get some free spikes damage, so I'm not clear what he was playing around. I don't like this play. I mean, blanking the EQ is good, but I think if Kollin loses the Mence, he's actually going to have a really hard time. I think the Mence is pretty good in this matchup, and he wants to keep it around. You could argue that it's not that valuable because of the Skarm, but we don't actually know if the Skarm has Toxic. I still think on this team it's probably Drill Peck, since he's so vulnerable to fighters. If he doesn't have that, he needs a little bit of extra to help him with something like a Heracross or a Breloom that otherwise could be difficult. But yeah, he's not going to get through like this. I mean, hell, maybe he should Rock Slide. I'm not convinced that this Skarm actually has Toxic. And yeah, he doesn't go for it. He goes for Roar. Now, granted, that crit was obviously lucky and relevant for Kollin, but I'm not sure if he's picked up on it or not, but I don't think the Skarm is Toxic. I think we're looking at Drill Peck here. I really do. He goes back to Milo here. Tanks the Hydro Pump. Like I said, Swampert, a 0% offensive threat here, so long as that Milo is around. Gonna wall it forever. Here comes Zap. And there is a recover. Missed opportunity there, I would argue, to click Toxic. The Milo could have come back in later on the Swampert and gotten a recover off and didn't. And I think that Toxic on Zapdos would have been valuable there. So I think a minor mistake for Baddummy there. A minor missed opportunity to fling Toxic. And I think you should do the same thing here. I think you should click Toxic. And I don't know what Kollin does about that exactly. I don't like the recover. I mean, it works out better in this case than Toxic would have, so there's that. But Toxic seems like a big threat. The only thing that can absorb it at this point is the Rachi, which is clinging to life, coming in on those spikes, and at just 23%. But the crit matters, though. The Mence crit on the Skarm absolutely matters. There's a world where the DD Mence actually sweeps now. Out of the way he goes again. But it's a blanked Earthquake again. Rick can't capitalize on it. We've got ourselves a close one, and this is only game 1 of a best of 3. Here comes the Milo. And the hidden power there, underwhelming without Dragon Dance behind it. I would once again click Toxic. He's going to be a bitch and click Recover. See? But once again, I think the play was supposed to be Toxic there. He's very, very paranoid about the Mence, and he's trying to keep the Milo healthy at all costs. But this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. This has been my personal observation with having Rick for 2 years in a row on my Mushi team. He falls into this pattern a lot where he gets really paranoid about not losing and not blowing it, that he doesn't make aggressive plays, and that he just doesn't click things that he's supposed to click. He's just very, very defensive in these moments. It may or may not work out for him, and that's all he cares about. I don't remember the exact quote, but he said something to me along the lines of, I'd rather look like an idiot but win than look smart and lose, which I obviously agree with. But I do think there have been a couple of opportunities where he should have been clicking Toxic. Nevertheless, the body slam there gets the perfect slam, both the crit and the para. So that's relevant for Rick. Zapdos is not too exciting anymore at just 23% and para that he we now know cannot remove because there's no Pokemon on this team that can learn Heal Bell or Aromatherapy. T-Tar comes in for Kollin, Body Slam. Basically useless, but the bigger picture issue here is that the Claydol will shut off this set forever. Another issue is that the Wish that Jirachi has, not that he should stay in here and eat an Earthquake, but the Wish that Rachi has can heal up that Skarm as well. And in fact, he did try to get a Wish off, but full Para kicks in at a bad time, and now Taunt is going to prevent him from doing that again. So if he stays, it's just going to be for an unexciting Fire Punch or Body Slam. Milotic takes the Rock Slide without too much issue here. This time I would not Toxic, I would Surf, but he's probably going to recover. Killing me. Killing me. Got to make some aggressive plays. Home Slice. He's going to refresh. I know, Rick. I know how this works. And there's the Rock Slide. Any takers that on turn 85 he clicks Recover? Anybody? Any bets? Any wagers? I mean, this turn I like the Recover. But other turns, not so much. Too conservative. And there's Toxic again. I mean, Rick's just fishing for full power here, but he's also letting the T-Tower lefty up to very healthy. There's another Rock Slide. Sure, Mist will suffice. Can you please click Surf now? There is absolutely no reason not to. Right, or not. Or we go to Jirachi. Well, he's going to try to pass a Wish. This, I assume, is going to go to Skarm. Here it comes. And we don't know if the Rock Slide even had a chance there. Full Para kicks in. Skarm is healthy. And even though Rick is behind, air quotes, 5-4, I think Rick is now in a very good place and is very likely to win this game. I don't think Kollin can break this anymore. There's no spinner and the Jirachi's too low. That's just the bottom line. I think Baddummy, even though he's down 5-4, scoreboard can be deceiving, and I think this is one of those instances. I think Rick is going to take game one here. I think this one is all but over at this point. I don't see the way out for Kollin anymore. I've seen ways out throughout the game. I thought it's been pretty close up until the end here, and I think this could have gone either way. But I think that his fate is largely sealed at this point. I think Rick is going to take game one. Rachi at just 19% in the red, even after lefties here. Here comes Doll, just in case. Don't want to get your Milo psychicked or whatever. Get it crit, and then Mence comes in and fishes for a crit or some kind of disaster like that. And Rick does not even take the chance. EQ blanks. Mence is not going to be able to do a lot, though. The Milo and the Skarm are both at full at this point. He had his chance, but that time has passed. He's going to need an immediate crit here just to have a shot in hell. And even then, he's going to need a Toxic miss. Or, yeah, he can go for Flinch, which he does not get. And now I think he's in some trouble. Even if he were to crit Hidden Power and kill Milotic now, the Skarm could stall him out before he's able to kill stuff, and the Toxic would get him. And he goes for Slide again, possibly anticipating Skarm, and possibly trying to shut off or recover via Flinch, either or. But I think we're going to see Protect from Skarm. Like I said, I believe the last two are going to be Protect and Drill Peck. Maybe Kollin could DD on a Protect turn. And there is the Drill Peck, so I believe I'm correct about what the set is, but he's just too low. Especially if Protect comes down now, which it very well may. And Kollin, I think, has to just attack again. Yup. And there's Drill Peck and the kill. Crit didn't matter there. Toxic would have finished him. Skarm is very low, but it just doesn't matter anymore. Look at the team for Kollin. 25% Rachi. 23% paralyzed Zapdos. T-Tower nursed itself back up to full with lefties, but it's paralyzed still. And then there's the Swampert, which can hurt like the Doll, the Rachi, the Skarm, so I guess there's that, but it'll never ever break through the Milotic, so Unless Rick really F's up and somehow gets his Milotic killed, that's just going to be the wall that the Swampert cannot break. He's at 69. I guess he could come in here and be immediately critter frozen or something. Swampert does, of course, have Ice Beam, so he's got the option here. Rick should just surf, but he won't. Yep, there's Recover. He does have the out here of Ice Beaming. He survives. Needs a freeze right now. And doesn't get it, and that really should be it. That really ought to be it. Kollin is playing it out, and it's certainly his prerogative to do that, but I don't think it's winnable anymore. I think this one is unofficially done. They are going through the motions, but I think Rick is going to take game one here. I think that's an inevitability, and we'll see what adjustments they both make going forward. Now he surfs. Fucking finally. This is the level of I feel safe that this guy needs to make an offensive play. Gotta be careful here. We are only at 93. You might want to recover here. There is the surf. And here comes Zapdos. You sure you don't want to recover? Zapdos does know Thunderbolt. Alright. Surf takes him down. And even though Rick drives me nuts in Mushi with this exact same thing, sometimes you should just attack. Rick does take this game nevertheless. So it's a 1-0 series lead for him. As you guys know, this is a best of 3, and it's also single elimination. So Kollin is going to have to take game 2 and game 3, or he'll be out of play-ins. And Rick, of course, has 2 chances to finish him off. And something that I appreciate, especially in a live narration, and I'll switch sides for continuity, is that they are not wasting a lot of time in between games. They don't feel like they need 10-minute breaks. It's not the whole, oh my god, I'm hyperventilating. That match was intense. Holy shit, I need to breathe. They're just getting into the next game. And I appreciate that. Ludicolo, well, we only see him for a brief moment. He gets boomed on, but hey, cool to see that guy. Not a poke that gets a ton of love in OU. Kollin, I switched to the bottom again, like I said, for continuity. He had a Zap lead against a T-Tar lead for Rick. Unsurprisingly, Rick's got a Skarm. These slow, safe, Skarm Tower, water, bulky stuff, that's Rick's bread and butter. Kollin, I don't know as well as a player, but I think these mid-range, aggressive-ish leaning balances are right up his alley as well. Looks like neither guy is overly deviating from their comfort, and to the surprise of no one, Rick has opted for Skarm Bliss. Ludicolo is a weird mon to add to that mixture, but Tower Skarm Bliss, about as standard as it gets, and if you have to trade one member of your team for a good poke like Metagross, it's probably the Ludicolo, because I assume the other 2 things in the back for Baddummy are proper OUs and are better than Ludicolo. So T-Wave comes down. Lax is paralyzed. Fair enough. It may or may not have rest. This could also just be a semi-boom spammy team with some aggressive stuff in the back. So we could have whatever, Doll Coon in the back or Doll Tar. Something like that. Blow up a bunch and try to sweep with whatever's in the back. There is T-Tar. Very common on these kinds of teams. See what he goes for here. He's coming in for the first time. I would guess on this kind of squad that it is a physical tar, probably specifically a DD tar. So I don't think I would overly worry if I were in Rick's shoes about a flamethrower here. And indeed, it is a Dragon Dance tar. Immediately checked by Claydol, and Earthquake immediately blanked by the lead Zapdos. Here comes Bliss, and Toxic is going to be a swing and a miss. I doubt that it's a Dugtrio in the back for Kollin. It doesn't make a lot of sense on this team, so I don't think we've got the Zap-Dug combo going here. I think it's probably either just another Boommon like Gengar or Doll, or something just like a Starmie or whatever, an off-star, give you emergency spin and give you an offensive presence from the special side. Could also be Aerodactyl if you're just going rock spam. I've seen Breloom as the last mon on this kind of team. There's some options, but obviously an offensive team from Kollin, and Rick just being boring and safe and standard, but as much as I like to give him crap, it's not about brownie points here. It's not about looking cool. It's about winning. He's up a game. This is what he's comfortable with. This is what he thinks is going to get him the victory. More power to you, my man. Full power comes in at a bad time. This is actually double bad time because now Spikes is for sure going to come down. And I don't know, maybe he's got Starmie or something in the back, but he probably can't remove it. So definitely a tempo loss here. This is one of the issues with basically any Snorlax set when you're not pairing it with Magneton. Not saying you never should. There's definitely sets, Curse 3 attacks, or just flat out 4 attacks, utility moves plus boom. There's that kind of lax that can be good, but you do run into this issue. This is one of the issues with lax as a whole, that Skarm is going to come in, Skarm is going to get a layer down, and you have to accept that. Magneton, basically the only way around that, and even then, it'll still get a layer or two down a decent portion of the time. You have to not only get the Magneton in exactly when the Skarm comes in, which is easier said than done sometimes, but even then, and even modest with Magnet, even then, it's not a guaranteed KO. Sometimes the Skarm simply gets the roll, survives, and all that hard work, the spikes come down anyway. So it's Kollin taking the time here. Rick has really not used his timer much at all. He is in a bit of a clicker mode here. But Kollin is taking a moment to pause. Ben actually over a minute here. Minute and a half as he thinks about this one. Yeah, I don't blame him. This is a weird turn. And I was just about to say, but of course I didn't get to it on time, that he may be considering if he wants to just boom here. And I don't mind that play at all, because I really, really don't think that Rick was ever going to protect there. I think you always, always, always spike on that turn. You just have to take the opportunity while it's there. How much of an idiot do you feel like if you protect and Kollin just goes back to Zapdos? You've got to spike. So I think that was actually a pretty good boom. I think that Kollin's team that doesn't have the easiest time removing Skarmory, it looks like, I think trading there, totally fine. One layer for the guy, as good as you're going to get in that spot. So I actually am totally fine with that play from Kollin. I think that is a sensible boom. So that leaves us, of course, in a 4-4. Just like last game, Kollin's got a thing for hiding his last. We are still not clear what that is, but something aggressive for sure. Here comes T-Tar, stepping on the spike. And he does not have lefties, so it's probably Lumberry. And Salamence makes plenty of sense. Gonna be against Doll here, which could have Ice Beam, but probably doesn't. Not super common for Doll to have Ice Beam these days, and even if it does, it's almost certainly not going to kill Salamence here. Of course, it could be a Mixed Mence, which often runs minus Special Defense Nature. Even then, it might not kill, because Claydol's Special Attack, which you basically never invest in, really is that bad. But yes, more likely, it is a physical Mence. We do see EQ here, so I believe this is also a Dragon Dancer. Busting out double DD is Kollin7, and it looks pretty good in this game. With the Skarm down, and with Rick using stupid Ludicolo over a proper Bulky Water, any of Kuhn, Milo, Swampert would have been better in this spot. But yeah, with the Skarm down, and with stupid Sombrero Ludicolo being the water of choice in this game, I think that Kollin's going to probably send us to a Game 3. Certainly looks that way in this moment. Swampert is low and is poisoned, so it's probably not long for this world, but I also don't know to what extent that matters in this matchup here. Tar can live exactly one more Seismic Toss. Second one will kill. Does not have lefties. There is a world where it's Rest plus Chesto Berry, but that's a very rare set of T-Tar that almost no one other than me thinks is good. It's probably just Lum. Rock Slide there on Doll, resisted. Intimidate actually could matter here. Yeah, so his attacking move is Rock Slide rather than Ice Beam. So obviously in that case, the Intimidate does matter. And we'll see how he wants to proceed. I think even given that, he might consider Dragon Dancing. You could also just attack here. Nothing really switches in very well to the Salamence. Now granted, he probably didn't love the Rock Slide there. I think he was obviously trying to come in and blank an EQ instead. Rock Slide mildly relevant. There is a world where Mence tries to get cute, goes for DD here, gets crit or something to that effect. Mence might not be 100% safe here, but there's only going to be so many opportunities, though, to get it in. It's tempting to either just DD or just attack here if you're Kollin. I don't know if I love Switch. What exactly is coming into Claydol here? And he opts for the just attack route, but Blissey, who very well may be bold, takes that relatively comfortably. 36%, 0.000 chance that the Mence can kill here without a crit. And obviously risks the T-Wave that we already know is there, and Ice Beam that we can assume is there. Tremendous risk should the Mence stay in here. Maybe Rick can pull this out. Kollin should win this game, but it's tight. Maybe Rick can get there. Both Ice Beam and Wave, relevant threats in this situation. And a lot of Kollin stuff is low. Zapdos is at 100, but T-Tar is at just 47%. And there's a spike, and it has no lefties. And then obviously the Mence itself, and then the Swampert is both low and poisoned from before. Hidden Power there, fishing for a critical hit. I don't like the soft boiled. I think you always click T-Wave there. I guess if you think Swampert is coming in, you can soft boil, but like even then you're just at like 60-something% and it comes in low and poisoned. I would have T-Waved there because then you could just soft boiled after. But Rick sees it differently. And we end up with this matchup again, but crucially this time the Intimidate is not on the Claydol, and the Rock Slide will absolutely 2-hit KO should it connect. So Kollin with the Mons lead, but I think he's starting to feel it slip away. I can see Rick winning this game. I'm starting to see the light at the end of that tunnel. Unclear as to whether Kollin can find his way out of this or not. It may require some amount of luck, such as Rock Slide misses. And again, Rick hasn't touched the timer at all. He's in clicker mode, but Kollin deep in the think tank here. Just 30 seconds left on his timer. And he's going to go for DD, fishing for a miss. Does not get it. 0 chance to survive another one. So he's going to need a crit or a miss. Both of which will suffice, but neither of which comes. In fact, it is Baddummy, insult to injury, getting the irrelevant crit there. Kollin might be in trouble. Quick health check here for Baddummy. Blissey at 100. You can see the doll. And then Metagross also at 100%. Zapdos can threaten Doll here, though he probably can't kill it from 46%. But the bigger issue is what do you do against the Blissey? Toxic at least puts a clock on it, but T-Wave is very real here. Goes to Swampert hoping that it's T-Wave. But it's not. It's Ice Beam. And with that, Swampert is at just 5%. Ice Beam again. Swampert is outsped. I'm surprised that Swampert was not made to at least be faster than Blissey on an offensive team like this. Even if it is a bulky pert, I'm a big fan of the set where it's max HP, 297 defense, and then you put the rest of it, even if it is relaxed, into speed, so you at least outspeed the Blissey for this exact kind of situation. That was a good HP bug there, and depending on the spread of the Claydol, that crit may have mattered. So Kollin gives himself a little sign of life, but he's still going to need luck to get out of this game. Here's meta. T-Tower better be faster, and it better get a crit or something. Does not click EQ, and agility is quite poor, and it is a non-T-Wave Zapdos as well. Rock Slide is really bad. This is the exact set that he does not want it to be. He's going to have to dodge a Rock Slide here and get a crit or a power. There's the dodge! And there's the T-Bolt! But he doesn't get the crit or the power, so he's going to need to dodge a second Rock Slide. Does not manage to do so, and that is going to be the ball game, whether he EQs or booms, whatever you want to do. He's going to kill the T-Tower either way, and Rick does manage to hold off Kollin's offensive. He is going to get this match 2-0 and advance to the top 4 of the Aqua bracket, and Kollin puts up a respectable fight, but he is going to be eliminated from play-ins, and you will very likely see him narrating games at some point in the main event. Hell, maybe even every week if he's up for it. That's going to be up to him. Tight one, guys. I hope you enjoyed both games. I thought both games could have gone either way. I think Rick was just the slightly better player, and, better player winning is something we desire. I think that's what we got in this instance. So that'll bring me back from 0-2 up to 2-2 for predictions. Make me look like a little bit less of a chump. But we still have some work to do. I do have to tell you guys real quick before we leave. Donations, we're at about $800 right now. Good start, but well short of where we want to be. Number to beat from last year, about 2,600. Let's try to get to that. If you've been enjoying the tour, if you're going to enjoy the main event, if you get even $5, $10 worth of enjoyment out of all this content, please consider contributing. It all goes into the prize pool. I don't keep any of it. It's fast. It's free. And by free, I mean there's no additional cost other than what you're donating. And it helps. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Lots more CALLOUS Invitational to come. I will see you guys in the next match.